Good morning, everybody. Yes, after a weekend, I hope you are refreshed and ready to tackle the day. Tackle the day like a rugby
Excellent.
player being tickled from
Fat on
behind.
fluffy.
Yes, a brand new week and lots of things to do and lots of people to see and lots of places to go as usual. So we got to move,
And
move,
people
move,
to do.
move it, move it, move it. People to do, yes, of course. Oh, I must tell you, I started watching that show that I mentioned the other day that people have been telling me. In fact, it was someone from this show, someone who listens to the show, who said to me, "You got to watch this. It's so cool." And it's called the Last Kingdom. It's all about the
Oh,
Vikings and the English kingdoms of Wessex and Northumbria and all of that shit. Anyway, I
is it
started
like
watching it.
based on true stuff?
Um, it's sort of it's kind of it's historical, but the main character, didn't ever exist, and they kind of put him in. I mean, it's very good. There's a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of. What made me think of it now is you saying "tackle him, fat on fluffy" and all that shit, and then in this show, this TV series, they've got like the um the main character, who's a guy called Uhtred, and he's got this girlfriend, and I think her name is Brida or something. Anyway, he says to her, "I'm going to hump you," and he starts like humping her, and it's
So
not
is it like a
not
comedy?
no, it's meant to be very serious, but this is probably how people spoke in those
Okay.
days, because we always think everybody in history is probably, they sound very sensible and well read and learned, and they have like really thoughtful and careful use of language. But probably "I'm going to hump you" is more like that would have been the way that people would have said that. They wouldn't have gone, "I'm going to now copulate with you and have and
Well,
produce an heir." Would have been more like,
but we
I'm
also
I'm
don't
really
do that today. We don't go, although I suppose we do.
what?
I'm going to pound you or something like that.
Um, oh yeah, and he says later on, um, I'm going to pound her, and it's going to be joyous or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably around about what they would. I'm going to pound
Ooh,
her.
this is joyous. How
Imagine her.
joyous.
I'm so looking forward to being pounded tomorrow by you. Please come home safe from the battle so we can pound me like a swing door in a hurricane. All right. Well, we were meant to be joined this morning by Gord Laws.
Yes, where
He's
is
on the.
he?
Yeah, where is he? Well, I'll tell you where he is. Gord is just such a soft bastard, right? Like if Gord isn't feeling 100%, and I'd forgotten about this, because you remember he used to be on the show once a
Oh,
week or whatever, and there was
yes.
always, at least every second week, there was some pathetic, "Oh, I don't feel good," or "Oh, I'm tired," or "Oh, I went
I
out last night and
worked
drank."
late.
Yeah, I worked late. There was always some shit with him. It was like, it was a regular. Like, Gord is the sort of person who, and I mean no disrespect, because I like the guy. I mean, that's why we keep inviting
Yeah,
him
of
back on the
course.
show, even though he comes up with the most bullshit excuses I've ever heard. But the truth is, like, Gord is just one of those people, and this is what I want to talk to Dr. Hanan about later on, because we were going to let Gord go with his
Oh,
thing
yes.
to Dr. Hanan. Yeah. So the thing about him is he's so unreliable. And I reckon that there are two or three things in the world that are just irreplaceable, whether it's someone you work with, whether it's a friend, whether it's a lover, whether it's a business partner. There are some things that are just not negotiable. Number one is reliability. Number two is
Mm.
loyalty. And number three is competence. So if you tick just one of those three boxes, well, you might make a fun person to party with, or someone who's, you laugh a lot and you have a good time. If you
Are
tick two of them,
reliability and loyalty not, ca- can you not put those into one?
no,
Can you
because
be loyal without being reliable?
Well, for example, like I think Gord is loyal. Like I think if he was sitting in a place and someone said, "Oh, Leigh-Ann and Gareth are such assholes," he would say, "No, they're not. I know them. Fuck
Yeah.
you." He's loyal.
But he
But
might still not
it's
come to work on Monday.
right, correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a reliability thing. So I need to ask Dr. Hanan about this because I think those are the most important qualities. But anyway, he sends me this at 3 a.m. and I can just hear it in this whiny, pathetic voice, right? Listen to this. Uh, hi, hi, GC. Sorry to message so late. This is at 3:05 in the morning. But I'm up with a bit of a bug and I'm not going to be able to make it this morning. Really sorry to cancel last second. Really hope we could reschedule ASAP. Thanks, man. Sorry again. You know how often I've woken up for the show and not felt 100%? It could be sinus. It could be like just general lethargy. It could be because I'm exhausted. It could be all kinds of things. And
Yeah, but
imagine how many shows, if I had Gord's Afrikaans word, deursettingsvermoë, like the ability to push through,
yeah,
we'd have 2 shows a week, every week. That's what we'd have.
but Gareth, I'm sorry. Oh, you know me, I'm like Switzerland. But
Yeah, I know, but
a
this is
lot
why I
of
like
time,
having you. Yeah, you make sense,
a
and then
lot
you
of
you you
times
get me.
it's a mental health thing. I'm not saying his is, but a lot of times, you know how many times I would love to message and say, I am suffering from ADHD paralysis right now. My anxiety is through the
Yeah.
roof, and I actually cannot do this today. Do you know how many times I want to send that to someone about a work thing, but I don't? I just say I've got a tummy bug. It's still
Well, this
not
is the problem.
100% accepted.
No, and it should not be acceptable because you need reliable people. Like, I'm sorry, if you were only on the show every 3rd Monday because you were just unreliable, I wouldn't have you on the show anymore. There's some like, what if you're an air traffic controller and you're not having the greatest mental health day and you like let your attention slip for a little bit and 3 planes crash into each other on the runway?
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops, your mental health is a problem. We'll talk to Hanan about this. We'll find out what he thinks. Anyway, look,
Yeah, that's actually something that's really on my mind.
I'm
So I'd
also I'm
like to
also just
chat
I'm
about
just
that.
annoyed because we've made this show so easy for anyone to do when they join, virtually now. You just There are 2, 3 things that need to happen here. Number 1 is you need to be awake. You
Like
need
lift your
to
head off the
have
pillow.
you need to have your computer and your internet need to work, and you need to just bring some fun to the show. That's all. Those are the 3 things you need to do. I mean, our listeners are all here, you know, and I appreciate that we do this show. I don't wanna moan about this all morning, but, like, this is there's kind of a contract going on here. People are not gonna come and listen to us if they don't think that we're gonna bring something interesting to talk about. And no one's doing anything for charity here. It's like either you're
Yeah.
part of the fun or you can just say you're not available. But don't
Some
say you're
amazing
available and then
comments,
go on,
some
pick a
great
few.
comments coming through, especially from Tracy, who I think is my
Alright.
soulmate. The most important thing is to just get up and get going. You'll either feel better or you'll feel worse. If you don't get up, you'll never know. If you commit
Well,
to
that's true.
something, you make it happen, come rain or shine.
Right.
Like
Right.
I
I
need
mean,
that type of motivation in my life every day.
listen, there are days where I wake up and I don't feel 100% where I'm not sure that I'm ready for a show or a meeting or we've got some event on or I've got to do an interview with somebody and I'm not jumping for joy about it or I'm feeling a little bit nervous about something or whatever. We all have that. And I do believe that mental health is being taken more seriously now. And nowhere more than on this show. I mean, Leigh-Ann, you remember like what, 12,
Oh
15 years ago,
yeah.
we were talking about this shit before it became cool and before everyone was using it as a lever for everything in their
Yeah.
lives. I was talking to somebody who I haven't seen for probably about 2.5 years. This guy's been through absolute hell, right? His dad died. His brother committed suicide like 4 years ago. he's he's lost a couple of jobs, and not because he's incompetent or because he's he's not able to execute properly, or because he fails at things or whatever. He's had some really bad luck, but like properly, and some terrible people in his life. Like bosses who promised him he would get X amount of commission on something and then he got nothing. And he was
Mm.
dependent on that money because now he's trying to support his mother and the rest of his family. Anyway, this guy's having a really hard time. But does he make excuses? Hell no. He gets cracking every single day. And I said to him, what do you think of these people who these days are claiming to be triggered by this or traumatized by that? And, he's had real trauma to deal with. And he said to me, I don't know. And I thought this was quite an adult and mature response as well. He's like, I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what it is. But he
Mm.
said, if I can't judge you by what you're feeling or by what you're thinking, I can only judge you by your actions. And if you're the kind of person who cannot be reliable, or you're constantly making excuses, or you never pitch for the fucking job or whatever, he said, then I'm afraid I can't take you seriously. So even if you have
Mm.
serious problems, you're just not the kind of person I could work with. And I think that's such a sensible way of looking at things.
And also, like, what I want to ask Dr. Hanan is, at what point does it become an HR issue?
Yeah.
And what powers does a business have to be able, or an organization, to say, I can't work with you, and you're no longer protected by whatever rights there are when it comes to mental health?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think a lot of people, you do get a certain number of these days. It's not that weird, but in the time that we started working, it was impossible to even imagine a future that included this. But couple
No,
of
you
mental health
literally had
days.
to have photographs of your teeth that had come through your forehead during a fall in order to not go to work.
Ah, yeah, exactly.
I literally did that once. I fell in the driveway once. I was having a wee when I got home from a night out, and I
Yeah.
was on my haunches, and my German Shepherd came along playfully and pushed me forwards, and I broke my two front teeth in half on the driveway,
Yeah.
and there were pieces of tooth in my
Oh
lip,
my God. Oh
and
my
I
God.
was driven to hospital, to the emergency room, and I took photographs for medical aid. And when I got back to work about 2 days later, I was still swollen and everything.
Yeah.
My boss, his name was Vusi, I remember him at the time. He said, I need proof that you were in hospital.
Oh
Where's your
wow.
proof? So I said, well, besides what my face looks like right now, I happened to take these
Right.
photographs. So literally, my teeth were coming through my forehead. And that's how he finally believed me and accepted that I was not available for work. That's how strict it was.
Right.
I was like
Yes.
23 years old at the time.
Well, Ruth says, while I'm staying home today, fuck that, my health comes first. Besides, my office is not really environmentally friendly, whether it's the mental part, who knows? Well, if you have the kind of job where you can get away with that.
Mm.
Listen, I'm not going to be one of those people who's draconian. We all have those, you know, ad hoc things that happen where you for whatever reason you cannot do work that day. We've all had that. I mean, I've overslept sometimes or whatever else, and then I'm like, no, you guys are just going to have to do the show. But I try to make
Yeah.
that the exception, not the rule. And I don't know. I think like reliability is quite a big deal. I mean, I still am very proud of the fact that even though the whole world ground to a halt during lockdown, and everybody was working from home and all the rest of it, we caught on to that quickly, and we didn't miss a show during
Yeah.
lockdown. Right? We didn't miss a single one, and I'm proud of that. Not because of look how good we are and how reliable we are, but we were there to help a whole lot of other people get through this, and we did it. And I'm sure that there are some people who, if we didn't pitch up for work that morning, would have had a reason to not pitch up themselves. You know? Anyway,
Mm.
Marilyn says, why are we spending so much energy on a no-show?
It's the broader subject, Marilyn.
Yeah. Morning, says John. Let's talk about drugs. Let's make them legal. and make this
Oh,
country first. It's the West imposed laws that will help us solve so many things: corruption, money out of the drug business, blah blah blah. I mean, that sounds like almost stream of consciousness, John. Almost sounds to me like you're a
sure.
little bit high
What
waking up this
yeah,
morning.
what
Sure.
are you on?
Um,
Sounds good.
yeah, it does sound good, but he makes it. If you want to talk about this, and we don't have to go into a whole breakdown of whether or not it would be a good idea to legalize drugs, but I think that there's so many drugs already. It's just who are we trying to
Yes.
kid? It's like
And there's so
such a
many that are
joke. Are you
legal.
kidding me? Yeah, just get on with it. Just legalize the whole fucking lot. And if people take them and they overdose and they've tried this in Portugal, right? They had less overdoses, less people um, sitting in jail for a long time with stupid charges that are drug related. Um, Less reasons for people to go overboard. They had health and like rehabilitation centers built with the money that they made from the drug trade, and people are healthier and happier in Portugal now than they were when it was illegal
What did they
to
legalize?
smoke.
Can you
All of it, I
remember?
think. All of it.
Sure.
I think you can do a lot of different drugs in Portugal now. But certainly, I mean, we've come some way, John, because we've got, you know, people can smoke weed in South Africa. You don't get arrested for that anymore. So I don't know what
Congo, Congo Chris says, why don't we start the mornings with something more light-hearted? Let's talk about the weapons we sold Russia.
oh my
Oh
God.
dear.
How embarrassing is this, by the way? The US
Um,
ambassador
Ambassador.
has said he believes South Africa has been loading weapons onto that Russian ship. And by the
In
way, I mean, that
Simon's
Russian
Town.
ship, yeah, it is so dodgy, this whole thing with us and Russia. And obviously, you can buy the ANC, you can buy their loyalty. There is absolutely no scruple in the whole party. They are the most twisted, rotten. I saw Fikile Mbalula posted a picture yesterday of some national working committee meeting. I mean, he's always posting these things that make it look like the ANC's working, but they're not working. They're working on
Mm.
ANC things. They're not doing their government job. Forget because
Uh,
they're not being paid a salary by the ANC. They're being paid a salary by us. And I see these people sitting in these meetings. I'm like, these are the people who should, if they walk into a restaurant, the rest of the people in the restaurant should get up and boo and point. We should all
yeah.
know who those, really, I think we should know who those people are. They are switching off our power and they're
No, it's
incapable. They're incapable of doing anything in a competent way. Let's go back to those three things that I said I would rely
yeah.
upon, or that I think are valuable in an employee or a coworker, or whatever. First one, competence. They all fail on that level. All of them.
Meh.
Not one, not one competent. And I defy you. I would love someone who's a major ANC fan, or someone who's well read in politics, who knows what's going on. I'd love you to come and tell me one person in that party who's competent. And I mean at their job. Like, if your job is Minister of Tourism, you need to be the most au fait person in the cabinet on tourism. And that's not even the case there is
It's
no
not
one
gonna
there who
happen.
actually there's no one in that whole cabinet who has a qualification in the area that they are meant to be representing in government. Anyway, competence out of the window, right? Second thing, reliability. Well, please, please. That's just not going to happen. And as
We
for
rely on
loyalty,
electricity, so there's
exactly
that.
right. And as for loyalty, I mean, they're not loyal to anyone but themselves, their wallet,
Yeah.
and maybe the party, but only the party because the party's their meal ticket. Right?
Mhm.
Anyway,
It's
so I love this.
it's power and greed. That's all it is really, and
Sure.
incompetence.
100%. But at least with like Jacob Zuma, we knew that was what we were up against. This guy he was in the business of stealing, and he was a materialist, and he was greedy. And we knew that. We could deal with that. These other guys, they're trying to disguise that as being something else, but it's just the same. Um, I love this Carte Blanche last night. Now, I never watched Carte Blanche, so thank God just Kim watched it. But it came out that the Joburg,
Mhm.
Came out that the Joburg mayor has a grade 10. Are we shocked? A grade 10, what is that like? 2 years
8.
before you meant to finish varsity. Yeah. Oh my, I mean, finish high school. That is pathetic. But I'm not surprised. He's this other dude from the Al Jamaa party, right? And while we're talking about that, guess who our acting mayor is at the moment? Do you know?
I heard this, and I need to I need to understand. Go.
There he is. There's our acting mayor, Kenny Kunene. How great is that?
With
Huh?
the classic photo of him eating sushi off of a woman's naked body.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the guy we got in charge of Johannesburg. Acting mayor Kenny
Uh,
Kunene. This is the one who's
but
not sure whether he has a drinks cabinet in his office or not.
but apparently only for a day, so I don't really understand.
Oh my god! All right. Anyway, look, what are we going to do? Sit and complain about politics? Because what do you? This is not going to make you happier. This is gonna mire you in bullshit. So let's talk about some other stuff. We've got a lot to get through today. This cult in
Just one
Kenya.
more
We've
thing.
got to.
Sorry, one more thing on politics quickly. You
All
know what
right.
irritates me now about these potholes
Only
that were
because you asked.
circled?
Only because you asked nicely.
You know what irritates me about these potholes that were circled and then spray painted ANC is that now
Yes.
they're fixed and the ANC is still there. So it looks like the ANC fixed the potholes, but they didn't. It
Well.
was communities, community networks.
Well, then those communities should, like, whoever fixes the potholes should have black spray paint, and they can then spray paint over the
Yes.
ends. Yeah.
Do that, communities.
No, right. Like, go the whole way, people. Don't just fix the pothole. Also, get rid of the tag that someone else put on the pothole.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about today. This Kenyan cult we've got to get into later on, and I hope we'll find some time for that. But Elon Musk has named a new CEO for Twitter, and it's a woman. And we're going to find out a little bit about her later on. But she's got a very difficult job ahead of her because people it doesn't matter who you are. At Twitter, you're going to be in trouble, right? Because there's so many people who are just not going to like you just because you're in charge of Twitter. And they think they own it. So it's the most difficult job in the world. And then a father who was traveling with his 13-year-old daughter. So you imagine you're a dad and you're either on holiday or you're going back home or you're doing something else, but you've got your 13-year-old daughter with you. He was suspected of human trafficking by flight attendants.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And yeah, again, like, how some parents, because a kid might behave badly, especially a quite young child, and then they might get a clap, and then someone else
Yeah.
makes it a bar, and someone else will. I mean, when we were kids,
Abuse.
yeah. But when we were kids, if you got a clap from your parents, nobody else interfered. There were no other passers-by or eyewitnesses or whoever go and report this to child welfare or something else.
No, they
they'd be
were
like, ah,
probably like, "Rachswer."
yeah, there's a good parent taking charge of their kid. But obviously these days, if anyone, if the kid is like, let's say the kid's got the mutters, and what 13-year-old daughter doesn't? I mean, I think a 13-year-old daughter is probably going to look like they're the unhappiest person in the world when they're with their dad, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
a
they're generally just
13-year-old
always grumpy.
But a 13-year-old girl is particularly grumpy about being with her
Oh,
mom
yeah.
or her dad, or that she doesn't want to be there. So the untrained eye, the observer, in this case, the flight attendants, they look at this and they go, that girl looks unhappy. Do you think she's being human trafficked? So that's the
Oh
first
my
thing we jump to.
gosh.
Not, oh my God, all right, this is some hormonal, insecure teenage girl who doesn't like traveling with her dad. Everything her dad does is like, oh, it's not cool. Because you can imagine, right? The body language,
100%,
the look on
100%.
the face.
And there's this prank, it's been doing the rounds for years now. Various like comedy shows use it, where someone who's sitting on a park bench, an adult,
Yeah.
will be approached by another adult, a parent with their child, And
Mhm.
they'll say, the adult will say, I'm just popping to the loo or something. Can you please just look after my child? While the child's sitting there, another person comes up and says, hi, little girl, why don't you come with me? Your mom sent me. And you see
Mhm.
the person who's being pranked is now really uncomfortable and they don't know what to do. And they're like, no, 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 you're not the parent. But it's interesting to see that the person who's being pranked, if it's a female, they'll maybe physically draw the child to themselves and say, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
this is not on. But if it's a male, they'll get up and seek another female from the public and say, can you help me in this situation? Because they don't want to be seen touching this child.
Right.
Public
Oh my
perception
God.
has changed so
Yes.
much that a male is
Wow.
embarrassed to be in public with a 2-year-old child.
You know what? That is such a good point. Holy shit. I'd never even thought of that. Like, I didn't think that would be an option. To me, I would react, I would, yeah, I would want to get physically between the child and the other person.
Yes.
But now that I think about it, that could look, especially if I physically move the child to behind me or whatever, it could look very
Yes.
weird, the untrained
It could
eye.
look like
I hadn't
you're in the
thought of
wrong.
Jesus, that is so twisted because you're trying to be the good guy, right? You don't
Mhm.
have any ulterior motives or nasty intentions. Oh my god. You get
Yeah.
immediately they misread it as like you're some kind of abuser or
Pedophile.
whatever.
Yeah.
Pedophile. Jesus, that's bad. Yeah, we've come to this point, right?
Mhm. And I mean, this
We've
flight
come to this
attendant, it's the same as a nursing staff or someone in a hospital
Mhm.
where an abused woman has been brought in by a man and maybe she's even pregnant.
Yes.
Um, and the man won't allow her to be seen by a doctor alone. Immediately, you
Mhm.
think that's sex trafficking. And so you can imagine these flight attendants are probably trying to be as vigilant as they can and think they might
Right.
that you don't want to miss that. You don't want to make a mistake.
Mhm.
But so they're being
Well,
overly careful now.
so let me tell you about this quickly because the father said airport security stopped him after flight attendants suspected him of human trafficking. His name is Francisco de Jesus. So
Okay.
Francisco de Jesus said he was traveling with his 13-year-old daughter from Seattle to North Carolina earlier this month. He was using the plane's bathroom, and he said flight attendants gave his daughter wings and asked if she was okay, where she was going, and who she was going to meet. After the flight landed, he told them that personnel, including the airport's head of security, met them after they deplaned. He said he was told the flight attendants were trained to look for signs of human trafficking. At that point, my heart just sank. However, he said airport security staff, saw the situation for what it was after answering a few questions and was allowed on his way. The passenger told the outlet that he contacted American Airlines for an explanation, but he didn't receive one at first. My question that I would like to have answered is how did they get to label me as a human trafficker? I had my iPad. We were watching a movie. She had her phone. I mean, these are things I thought a dad and a daughter would do if they were traveling together.
Mhm.
So, an American Airlines representative said our frontline team
Mm.
members are trained to navigate a variety of safety issues, including recognizing potential signs of human trafficking. We strive to create a positive, welcoming environment for everyone who travels with us and apologize for the misunderstanding that might have occurred or did occur. See, it's
Yeah.
such a fine line, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
how much do we want third parties being able to judge
Being
things? Because
vigilant.
you get a lot of busybodies in this world, as we found out during lockdown, for example. Um, you get a lot of people who like interfering in other people's lives, right? They want to get involved. They're like, I'm going to insert myself into this, even though,
Busybodies.
right, it's got nothing to do with me. You got a lot of these people who are running around and they know what's good and they know what they want to be the one who calls out someone else or makes a judgment on something. And some of these people are pretty awful people themselves, but they love to judge others. so funny. Went shooting on Saturday morning, and one of my mates from varsity, who I see him quite regularly, he and I were talking about there's certain kinds of stereotypes that are just true. Um, you know that Afrikaans lady, and again, I don't want to upset anyone in the audience, and I've got Afrikaans family, so if you do get upset, screw you. Actually, you know those ones with the hairstyle. You know, like with the hairstyle, it comes that's high at the back and then it comes down in the
It's
front and it's shaved.
the Karen hairstyle,
Yeah, it's shaved
the
at the back
manageress
and it's always dyed like a maroon color or whatever. You know those ones, right?
with like highlighted tips.
Yes, those women. Now, I know it's a stereotype, and I don't care if it's like got overtones of being prejudiced or whatever. Those people, there are two things about them. Those particular women. Number one, they are fiercely competent. Like they can get 5 times. Like they really can get a lot of shit done. So they're useful to have on your team. But the other thing about them is they are so judgmental and self-righteous. And
Mm.
everybody else gets judged by this standard, even if they themselves only meet that standard. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he was just saying to me, he's worked with a lot of these women. He's got like this aversion to them because while they are unbelievably good at certain things and can deliver and they're efficient, man, they can squeeze 200,000 things into a day that the rest of us can do 5. And they are like they can be entrusted with your house keys and nothing will happen. But you know that if you give them your house keys, they're going to be rifling through your things and trying to find something because they like to judge. So it's this two-edged sword, this double-edged sword,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? So those kind of
Yeah.
people, it's amazing to me how like we have certain requirements of people. We want them to be all those things that I said at the beginning of the show. There seems to be a theme, like loyal and competent and and reliable. And these women are competent and reliable, but they are not loyal at all. Like if someone
Only to their
walks up,
clan, maybe.
not even like someone could walk up to them and go, "What do you think of Leigh-Ann?" And they'll go, "Yeah, I've worked for Leigh-Ann for like the last 3 years, and I will tell you, she is very good at what she does, but she is a terrible person." You'd be like, "What?" No, she doesn't believe in God, and she has a loose sexual morality, and she is overly kind to her pets and not kind enough to homeless people. And you'll be like, "What? How can you say that about me? I'm a nice person," because they think, you see, they've got like this self-righteous attitude that they're very good people, and in their heads that they
Yeah.
are the best people. You know those
The,
ones.
I know exactly because my psychiatrist's rooms, there's her receptionist and then the other psychiatrist receptionist. And they're both like those women. And it's so funny.
Yeah,
Every time you phone there, she's like, Dr. Liebenberg's kamers. Dr. Liebenberg's kamers. Um, and the two of them, while you're sitting there, scrolling through your phone or a 1984 magazine,
yeah,
the two of them start chatting, and that's how you can judge their character. And that's exactly what they're like, where they start
yeah.
bitching about things and other people,
Hmm. Hmm.
while they're whiling away the boredom of the day.
Well, Congo Chris reckons I'm the king of the Karens. That's why I'm defending them. I'm not. Listen, I think we're trying to show here, Chris, and I appreciate being called the king of the Karens. I'll take that. But what we're trying to show here is that you get the good. Like again, these are super efficient, highly competent, really reliable people. If you ask them to do something, you don't have to ask twice. It will be done. And they make for the most amazing gatekeepers. Like if you are in a meeting and your own wife calls, she will go like, let me just think. Is his wife more important than the meeting he's in? Like no one else would do that. Most people would be, "Oh, your wife, sir, your wife is on the line." These women would be like, "No, no, no, this is the most important meeting. Oh, yeah. I'm going to just fob the wife off." Now, that's the kind of thing that like a super efficient, highly motivated, really tough on themselves person would be. But the sting in the tail that you get with those people is that they are judgy beyond belief. So I think we all know what we're talking. I mean, George Meany even agrees with me. He says they make for amazing PAs, but don't double cross them. Oh, absolutely. Right?
Yeah. You don't want to be on the
Oh,
wrong side of them.
no. It was just such a funny conversation to have. By the way, we shot clay pigeons, and it was absolutely terrific. Great way to spend the morning. There was 7 of us who went out. My sister was
Oh,
the only
yes.
girl, and she did really well. She swapped shoulders halfway through the shooting because she realized her left eye was dominant, and
Oh, yeah.
apparently that's the case. That's the case for a lot of women. There was this terrific
Oh.
guy who was kind of like he accompanied us and gave us some tips on how you should stand and what you should aim at and all that kind of thing. And it was really really good because usually you go to these things and everybody's like, especially because if it's all guys, they're like, oh, well, we know what to do. We don't need any coaching. You know what guys are like. They always think they know everything,
Mm,
especially around other
yeah.
guys. They don't want to be the one. So we were all listening. It was really good. We got some really useful tips. And my sister swapped shoulders because she likes shooting, but it gets sore after a while,
Mm,
because women just have lighter frames and all the rest of it. But she did damn well. And when she swapped to the left shoulder, she was shooting 10 times better. It
later.
was quite incredible. Yeah. Anyway,
I
we
would
did
I
all
would
of
need to
this.
sue my optometrist because my eyes should be perfectly equal.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently everybody's got one dominant eye and one that isn't. And you know how you check? You like hold
Like this.
your finger in front of you. Well, no, you hold your finger right in front of your eyes, and you close one eye, and you see how much the finger moves. And
Yeah,
the one that it moves the least with is your dominant eye. Do you see that?
not really.
Look at you this morning.
I took my mum for an eye test, right? But now when you've had a stroke,
Yeah.
you have to have this specific, like, technological super tech optometrist with amazing machinery because your optic
Yes,
nerve has
I
been
know those.
affected,
But
etc.
they bring that huge machine right in front of you, and like you've got different things
That
to
no,
look
that's
through, and
just
they
normal. That's just normal. You must see
oh,
now for
oh
neuro.
wow.
For neuro, it's like triple that. The eye exam is 2 hours long. You've got to follow things on a computer screen, and because typically with strokes comes double vision and things like that.
Oh my
You
god.
might lose depth perception. So yeah, for 2 hours we sat there. It was really fascinating. They put prisms into your lenses so that you can
Oh my
stop seeing
god.
double. I mean, at the end of it, my mom was like, I can finally see, if I look at a TV screen, one person instead of five. So it's
Well,
really quite amazing. But
I've never admitted this before, but somewhere at the end of last year, beginning of this year, I've suddenly realized like my eyesight is not what it once was. And I haven't I
have
haven't
you had your
thought
eyes
about it
tested?
enough. Yeah, I had them tested about 2 years ago, but I
Oh,
think
that's
maybe it's time
okay.
to go again. Yeah, look, I wear glasses for when I'm looking at screens a lot and that kind of thing. But I actually think because a friend of mine said a while ago, in fact, it was Ben who first got me onto this. He went for that LASIK eye surgery, and he said since
Mhm.
then everything is better in his life. He sees much clearer, brighter. He said it's like a new lease on life, and I totally understand that. Didn't you also have that at some point, or have you always just worn the
No, else I
glasses?
wouldn't be wearing glasses.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do it one day. The complications come in now where age is set in and I wear multifocals.
So do you put
I
them on
can
the
only
edge of your
laugh.
nose? Like, you put it on the edge of your
So
nose and hello.
through the top part, I can see nicely far. But
Let's look at you.
if I've got text, small text, I have
Ah,
to do that. I have to look through the bottom part of my glasses.
so old.
Oh, what can you do, you
Uh,
know?
Carl says my dominant eye is my brown eye. I'm almost blind, but at toilet time, I can often see my future.
Oh,
Lovely
no.
Lady Lee says, Lovely Lady Lee says her finger is moving the same for both. Then you might have a very similar kind of
Yeah,
strength
mine's
in both
exactly
eyes.
the same, but then
Yeah.
good for
Well,
my
I mean, it's like
optometrist.
tits. It's like tits, right? I mean, every girl in the world, one tit is always bigger than the other, or one hangs slightly lower. And balls. Have you noticed that about balls?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. One ball is always lower than the other, and one tit is always bigger than the other. Which one's your dominant
Not,
tit?
or maybe not bigger, but it feels like your nipple placement is off.
Which one is your dominant tit?
I don't have a sense of which is. But I'd say and I'm doing this, by the way, while I'm
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yes.
But I'd say my left tit is the better looking one.
All right. Okay. So that's probably your dominant tit then. Oiled Prawn Shack says, I hate going for eye tests. They're worse than waterboarding. But how? I mean, an eye test isn't a terrible.
Not that
Even
bad.
if you go for those ones, you know, those ones where they put in like a,
A dye.
no, an anesthetic. You
Oh,
use an
yes.
eye drop, which is when they're checking your retina or whatever, and they need to be able to shine a light in, right? Because if you don't anesthetize the eye, then you're going to be, closing it, opening it, and blinking, and I don't know what else goes on. But they sometimes do. Even then, it's not nearly as bad as the dentist. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd
I
rather
mean, the
go.
worst
I'd
part.
rather go 10 eye tests in a row than go for one appointment at the dentist. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part is that glaucoma testing machine where it does a little puff in
Yeah.
your eye. But
Right.
the thing is that they're actually tiring. Like after this 2-hour session with my mom, I was even
Yeah.
tired. Where you're going,
Yeah.
you know, A, C, D, F, Z, 1, and then you've got to repeat that 50 times. Which is better, green or red? Green. And now green or red? Red. And now green or red? Green. And now green or red? Red. So
Oh my
exhausting.
God.
But the
Matthew
funny
says,
thing is that my mom carried on answering questions even though she'd finished the test. She was still up against the machine. And she was going, now what's better, A or B? B, A or B? A. And then the woman stopped and my mom was still going, B, A,
well,
B.
Matthew also says, my poor wife is -8 on both eyes. She can't even
Ooh,
do LASIK because it's so bad. Would have to slice off too much.
ooh.
Jesus, that's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do that eye
I'm
test
like
by
a
looking in the mirror.
-5.
Yeah. Are you -5? Is that your rating?
Yeah, I'm a -5. I'm certainly not a 10.
I named my twins Nicole and Nikki. My left is dominant, says Rebellious Ruth. Okay, well, you see, everyone has a dominant tit. That's very good. Jacques Horn agrees. He says, dominant tit, talk about lightening the mood. All right, well, let's turn our attention to Dr. Hanan. It's not difficult. We've been talking about him since we started the show this morning. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you guys? I'm doing well.
Hey.
Good. Good. Okay, so Doc, it was meant to be Gord Laws on with us this morning, and he had, I don't know, a whole wheelbarrow full of mental and emotional issues to talk to us about. But I want to bring up reliability. So I said to Leigh-Ann earlier that there are three things that I value in an employee, a business partner, even a lover or a a wife or whatever is. And these are three things that I they're different numbers on each one, but to me they're really valuable characteristics. And I want you to just jump in on this and tell me if I've got the right category or whether or not these are actually things that you should be looking for, and if they aren't, replace them with things that you should. So the first one is reliability, because Gord is like, he's not feeling 100%, so he's not on with us this morning. I mean, I'm sure there are mornings where you haven't felt 100%, right? Anyway, so that's one thing. And Leigh-Ann brought up that with reliability, she often feels like if you just get up and you just get out of bed sometimes, or it could have been a listener of ours, that is half the battle won, is just doing rather than procrastinating. So reliability is one. Loyalty is another. and competence is the other one. Those are the three things that I value. And obviously, other people may value different things. Some people may think that friendliness, kindness, generosity, these are all qualities that I think we can all see as valuable. But what do you think of my breakdown into those three categories?
So I'll mention a couple of things that I think might be useful to you. First of all, we are social human beings. We work in society, we work with other people, we socialize, we build connections in order to survive. And trust is one of the fundamental elements that help us get along. And the elements that build trust is honesty, transparency, consistency, and predictability. And without that, there's nothing to rely on the person for. And going one step further, I mean, I keep on talking about the coin theory, and that is invest your energy where there's most value. And we can break the coin theory into subsections. And one of there are 10 rules for the coin theory, but one of them that I teach my patients is inconsistency equals zero value. In other words, when somebody's in front of you in your social circle that is inconsistent, and that becomes a part of who they are, then they must be degraded or downgraded to a much lower status in your social group because you cannot rely on this person. So using primitive terms, you can't rely on them to go and gather food for you. You can't rely on them to make the fire for you, pitch up the tent, go and gather, go and hunt, go and protect your camp. And 200,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, 50 years ago, if we had people in our social circle that we could not trust, then we would not survive. So having reliable people around you is a non-negotiable. But going to your idea of competence, the trick is really to put people in the correct boxes where they belong. And what I mean by that, if I expect more than another person is capable of giving me, then my job is to lower my expectation. But the question is, how do I do that? Well, people say, well, don't expect anything. And that's all fine and well, but that's not realistic and it's not doable anyway. But the only way to lower your expectation is we expect less when we give less, when we put people and treat people in less or other boxes. So the moment I put somebody in a reliable box, I'm going to treat them as a reliable partner in this game called social interaction. But the moment they show me who they are and that becomes part of their character, I have to put them in a different box. Because if I keep on putting them in the same box, then I'm naturally going to be disappointed. So I can share a story with you. I have a patient who she found out her partner was cheating on her. She busted her partner after 8 years of having an affair with somebody else. And she sits in my office and says to me, Hanan, I'm going to go out and just have fun. I'm going to enjoy frivolous, superficial relationships. Anyway, she meets this guy and they have the most amazing physical relationship. And it's just literally a once-off. And she decides to go on a second date with him just to continue this physical, frivolous, superficial relationship. And in the second date, he says to her, hey, so tell me about your family. Tell me about what you are. I want to get to know you a little bit better. And she goes, no. She says, no, we cannot go there. That is not what you are here for. That is not your design. And I said to her, good for you. Because she tried to move out of the box and she put him right back in the box where she wanted him to be. And therefore she's got no chance of being disappointed. If she started sharing and caring and introducing him to the family, what naturally would happen, she would expect him to act that way and she would be disappointed. So we have to put, in terms of the competence, Gareth, we have to put people in the right boxes depending on what they're capable of giving us.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of reliability and consistency, it's so interesting that you point back to, you know, the times when we would die if that person didn't go out and catch fish every day. And that's all good and well. But yet today we are taught by mental health professionals or leaders or aspiring people that to fail once in a while is okay. We're told, you know, if you take a diet, for instance, if you mess up on day 4, it's fine. Just forgive yourself and carry on. So you're kind of taught to forgive your own incompetence or your own inconsistency, rather.
Inconsistency, yeah. Unreliability, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, Leigh-Ann, so there's two things. Number one is, of course, we must give ourselves permission to not always act like robots. Life happens, things come up that are unexpected, and we must give ourselves permission to not always act in line with our framework. But as long as it's not becomes part of the pattern, and as long as it doesn't become part of your excuse and your justification for not performing. Oh, it's because I'm lazy. Oh, it's because I am tired. Oh, it's because I don't have time. Those are just excuses. You're giving yourself permission to not.
Hang on. I don't know anybody who will ever admit that they are lazy. I don't know anyone who will admit that. You'll get people who admit they don't have time. They'll say they don't have time. I mean, it's amazing to me how the least busy people I know never have time. Oh no, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. You're like, please, you don't do anything anyway. You got like the least stressful job in the world. And a lot of people will say, I don't feel well or whatever. I mean, Leigh-Ann was saying earlier, there've been mornings where, from a mental health point of view, she just doesn't feel ready to take on the day. Whether it's ADHD brain or whether it's, a huge amount of like misery and self-awareness and depression or whatever else. And she'll, instead of saying that, because she knows that the cost of that is quite high in the workplace, she'll say, oh no, I've just got a tummy bug. Yeah. So she can get out of it. People don't admit what they really have, often because the cost of it is too high. Like, it's to say you're lazy. Who's going to say that to their boss or to their colleague?
Yeah,
that is like
of course.
That's like the death knell of that relationship. If you admit that you're lazy,
so you're right, people don't admit to their bosses. They might actually make that excuse to themselves, but people rely on other justifications. I've got ADHD, I've got anxiety, I've got depression, I've got this mental health condition, and those are just excuses for not performing. And I always say to people, the reason why you're not performing is because your framework isn't adequate. Develop an adequate framework, a very robust framework, and which will drive your behavior. We said it many, many times. Children rely on their feelings to dictate what they do. So when a child feels like it, he does it. And when he doesn't feel like it, he doesn't do it. So chocolate feels good to me, I'm going to do it. And broccoli feels bad, I'm not touching it. I don't want to go to gym, I'm not going to go. I want to go to gym, I'm going to go. Adults don't base their decisions on their feelings, because feelings change with a cup of coffee. Feelings change with a great phone call. Feelings change with a great night's sleep.
A good shower.
Absolutely. Cold immersion will change your feelings. So feelings are not reliable. Talking about reliability, feelings should not be your reliable friend that you lean on that will dictate what you do next. Whether you feel like it or not, get up, go to the gym, get up, get a shower, get up, engage with people that are reliable. Get up, go and work, and go find your sense of purpose. And it's not just about getting up and doing it, but creating a framework that drives your behavior.
I'm going to save that little bit as my alarm sound.
Right, yeah. Just save that to wake up every morning with Dr. Hanan's voice. All right. So, Doc, you've kind of answered this question in terms of the trust breakdown that you gave us right at the beginning. You explained what trust is, what the components of trust are, and why it's so important. But are there any other factors that you would look at in terms of choosing a colleague, an employee, a partner? I mean, besides trust, what are the other things that you would look for?
So trust is a non-negotiable, but I would ask myself, and I always say this because this is one of my 10 commandments. Always know what you want to gain out of that relationship. And I've asked you this before. If I phone you up and I say, Gareth, I want to ask your advice. Should I take a car? Should I take a bus? Should I swim? Should I fly? Should I crawl? What has the most amount of value? You in return would say to me, well, hold on. Where are you going? Where are you going first? What's a destination first? And then what's the best way to get there? And if I say to you, don't worry about where I'm going, what is the most amount of value? You would say to me, well, I don't have enough information to give you that data or that answer. It's goal first, strategy second. Because if I'm going across the corridor flying is crazy, and if I'm going across the country, swimming is ridiculous. It's goal first, strategy second. Goal first, strategy second. Never strategy.
Right.
Never. It's crazy. It's crazy to set up a routine and a strategy, and I'm getting to your answer in a second, to set up a routine, a strategy without a goal. Where are you going? Where are you going? It's crazy. So if somebody says to me, Hanan, I just had a whole tub of ice cream. Is that good or bad? My answer is, I have no idea. What's the goal? Because if the goal is to lose weight, you did the wrong thing. If the goal is to enjoy every minute of your existence, that was damn awesome. Hanan, I just went spinning 3 hours today. Is that good or bad? I have no idea. What's the goal? If the goal is to get fit, that sounded good. If the goal is to be an available father, well, maybe you should have spent 2 out of those 3 hours with your kids. So nothing has value outside of the context of a goal. Goal first, strategy second. But the reason why people don't want to set goals is because they're difficult. Goals put you at a potential of failure. Because once you commit to a goal, now you could fail. So if I say I want to lose 1 kilogram this week, I might not make it. So I'd rather make it very general. Let me do my best. But you end up failing anyway. And the third reason why people don't want to set goals is because goals require you to sacrifice. The moment you commit to a goal, you have to let go of something else.
Right.
The moment you commit to a goal, you have to let go of something else. The moment I commit to losing weight, I have to let go of the chocolate cake. The moment I commit to being in a marriage, I have to let go of all the wonderful things that I can do as a singleton. Goals require you to let go of something else. And children don't want to lose. So they want to lose the weight and have the chocolate cake, be married and act single. Adults understand that the gods of goals require you to sacrifice. So coming to your answer, Gareth, I always ask myself, what is my goal for this relationship? And ask myself, can this person satisfy that goal? So never mind reliability, what do I want to get out of this relationship?
Mm-hmm. That is very, very good stuff. I mean, sometimes the conversations we have that are more kind of off the cuff result in the most useful advice of all. So I love this. This is very powerful stuff. Goal first, strategy second. Always. I love the breakdown of trust. There's still lots that we've left on the cutting room floor, but we'll pick it up in the next one. Thanks, Dr. Hanan. Have an awesome Monday.
I've still got an image in my head of taking a bus to get to my lounge.
Brilliant. All right, Doc. Nice to see you. We'll talk to you next week.
Nice to see you.
Good.
Bye.
Well, I quote this guy all the time. I mean, when I hear people saying just dumb, self-destructive shit over and over again, I quote Dr. Hanan. I probably misquote him a lot of the time, so I'm causing even more confusion for that poor person. He's taught us so many things in the last 2-3 years that we've been talking to him. He's very, very good value, this man. All right, let's get on with it. We've got a busy day. We've got more to talk about. We've got lots of things to get to in the next hour. Stick around, cliffcentral.com. It is Monday morning at 7 o'clock. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
So we're talking about the art of counterfeiting.
Is a replica a fake? And
I have a theory to that, actually, as to what makes it fake. So I think if you're stealing intellectual property,
yes,
then it becomes
fake.
A fake.
Yes.
Whereas if you imitating with your own name and your own
your own brand, you're not trying to call a Lamborghini Hurricane a Lamborghini Hurricane.
Exactly. Yeah, you calling it
something else.
A Shamborghini.
A Shamborghini.
A tsunami or something. I don't know.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Let's get cracking. Monday morning, cliffcentral.com. Leigh-Ann Moll's here with me, and we have loads of things to still get stuck into. You know, the problem is that it's only Monday, and I know we're going to have stuff left over from today that we still don't finish. Then we're going to have to squeeze that into Tuesday. Then we're going to have all Tuesday's stuff. And by Friday, you've got all the leftover bits and pieces that just get forgotten about. I mean, there was a side conversation going on while we were talking to Hanan, and there just wasn't enough time for me to ask. But George asked, how do you test for trust in an interview? And there was a whole thing that broke out in the comments section about looking for trust. Do you have an answer?
Me? Gosh. I'm
Well,
the
how do you-
worst
how do you
person
pick
to
up-
ask. With my string of failed relationships where I trusted someone and
Yeah.
and they didn't come to the fore. Yeah, geez, I don't know. How do you test that?
I don't know, because I used to think I was a pretty good judge of character, but I don't actually
Yeah.
think I am. I think with the benefit of hindsight and a little bit of humility, I've worked out maybe I'm not such a good judge of character. You know, and George is asking this because he obviously
Yeah.
isn't sure how to test for trust in an interview. You know,
I suppose you
but-
could perhaps ask for the interview to take place in a strange venue, or maybe the person has to walk across a tightrope to get to the interview and see if they do it. There must be some kind of technique.
Well, I spoke to somebody, now that you bring it up, and George, maybe this is helpful not only because you're in the motoring industry, but it's a brilliant way of testing people anyway. I spoke to somebody who is an absolute business maven. I mean, this guy is just so successful that if I could have a tenth of his success, I'd be a billionaire. He said to me what he does when he's hiring someone and he needs to figure out their character, which has something to do with trust, obviously, is he lets them drive him to the business. So he's like, you got to pick me up or take me to lunch, and then fetch me at my office, and then we'll go to lunch. And lunch is always like at least 5 to 10 Ks away, so you can really observe them carefully. They don't know that you're watching them for their driving. You could see if they're nervous drivers. You could see if they're reckless drivers. You could see if they have a short temper. You can see if they pay attention to what everyone else is doing on the road. He reckons, and I think this is such a clever way of testing people, you put them in the car and you let them drive you, and then you can sit in the passenger seat. You obviously talk and carry on, but the real thing you're doing is observing them, because they don't realize in that situation that you're observing them. And often, whatever's going on around them is first and foremost in their heads. So they don't notice that there are little things about them that are slipping through.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way.
There was that one.
Someone.
There was that one CEO or scientist or I can't remember who. I promise the story gets better. But they would take a person to lunch on their interview, and they were interviewing for scientists. And if they would order soup, and if the person they were interviewing put salt into their soup without first tasting it, they wouldn't hire them, because as a scientist, you need to test first before you make assumptions.
Yeah, as a scientist, but I know I prefer salty food. So even if something arrives and I haven't tasted it yet, I add salt because I know I like a lot of salt. So I don't know if that always works. Maybe for scientists it'll work, but I don't know if it's always the best way to test. And I think famously there are a couple of people in history who've done exactly the same thing. Like they'll put food in front of somebody, and then before tasting it, they'll start seasoning it, and that just proves they're not like testing first. Sure. So in some jobs, I think that would matter, but Abraham made his guy hold his inner thigh, look in his eyes, and promise him. Now that's quite something. Abraham from the Bible, he made the guy hold his inner thigh, look in his eyes, and promise him. Well, maybe if you held someone, if you held someone, yeah, if you held someone's balls and then you looked them in the eye and you promised them, I mean, I promise you, I am a trustworthy person, because you definitely know immediately whether you could trust them or not.
Yeah. Where are the good old days where we just used to swear on a Bible and then you believe the person?
Right. Carl says, and I love this, the best way to test for trust is to leave an open bag of biltong on the table. Leave the interview room. If they eat some, you can trust them. People who don't eat meat cannot be trusted. So that didn't go as I expected it to go. Anna Marie says, walking the tightrope to your interview might not be trustworthy, but it will show that you're desperate for the work. Oh, very nice.
That's for sure.
Watch people around service providers when they think they're not being seen. Yes, the way people treat people who don't have any power over them. That tells you a lot about people.
Yeah. I went on a blind date once and the guy treated the waiter terribly. And that was that for me. Done.
Yeah. I don't like that either. So Wendy says, ask the person what they need in order to trust people. Often shows how they would go about building trust. That's a good one. But a lot of people don't think that deeply about things. So you have to actually observe them. Congo Chris says, I think the ability to think laterally is the most important thing. If someone can adopt, improvise, and learn, it demonstrates more transferable talent, the rarest characteristic you can ask for. Okay, well, we moved on from trust, but yes, I agree. That does sound good. Listen, as Karine says, who can resist biltong? Back to, Carl's. Sure.
But how expensive is it now? My gosh.
Jeez.
Like if you go to, I suppose if you go to a butcher, it's not too bad. But if you look at packets of biltong in a supermarket, it's like horrendous.
Listen,
for a spoonful or one handful, it's like 100 rand.
As South Africans need a couple of things in order to be able to do things, day-to-day stuff, right? South Africans need a few things. I don't care how many people say they're vegan or vegetarian. South Africans need meat. They need meat, they need booze, they need sport, and they need something to complain about. If South Africans don't have those four things, we're in big trouble, right? So already, okay, we've always got something to complain about with, load shedding and politics and the business world and whatever. The traffic, the potholes, there's always something to moan about. South Africans will always have that. So we've always got that one. Meat is now so expensive that it really, for many people, it's prohibitive. If they get to eat meat once a week, it's a lot, right? It's very expensive. And something like
that's
biltong,
not good because we need protein.
We do. And biltong is not a meal. So if you're going to buy it, it's a luxury. You need, spare cash for that. So I think if you take that one away, we've got big problems. The booze, well, we know what happens when you take away booze from South Africans. We saw in that first few weeks of lockdown, 3 years ago? And it drove people up the wall. You remember how crazy they went?
Yeah, we started making our own.
What was the third one? Sport. For some reason, I mean, look, not all of us, I couldn't give a shit about sport, but for most South Africans, sport is massively important. It's a pressure release. It's a thing that's safe to talk about. I was talking about this with somebody I've known for a long time as well the other day, and saying to them, it's a funny thing with South African men is like they don't feel safe talking about a lot of subjects. But the one thing every South African man can talk about and feel completely comfortable about is sport. So if you are at a braai or you're at an office function or you get to a meeting early and you start talking to someone at the meeting room or whatever, you're pretty safe if you're a South African guy and you start talking about sport. For many people, that's the the Goldilocks zone. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. Now, I'm no good at that because I don't know anything about sports, so I have to talk about much more controversial things, and I'll get bored if it isn't slightly interesting. So
Yeah.
I've had to learn the hard way that when other people are talking about sport, you just shut up and you just nod your
Yeah,
head
just
and
shut up.
pretend.
I do like how we tackled 2 in 1 there, where we complained about the price of biltong.
I know. We just did it. So we killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
But it is something to think about, because with the price of meat, apparently biltong's now 300 rand a kilogram. Is that right? 300 plus more per kilogram, says Anna.
It must be more.
I don't want to talk about this because it just makes me hungry for biltong. God, I could eat
Yeah.
biltong. Oh, like
Any time
if you
of the
took
day.
take away all the other snacks, chips and sweets and chocolate and all the things that are nice, and you leave
can
me with
have it.
biltong, I'm fine. I can handle that like a pro.
Yeah.
A South African was apparently caught with, this is MM. South African was caught with biltong by customs at an airport in Europe. They wanted to fine him 100 euros. He sat down and ate the biltong and then asked, "How much is the fine now?" Good move.
Yeah.
Good move. Never. If biltong feeds your brain, you come up with good shit. Went to a restaurant with the parents on Saturday, says Boiled Prawn Shack. 1,500 rand for 3 people. I was the only alcohol drinker and I had only 3 drafts. Drafts, rather. Dinge is fucking duur, mense. Yeah, man. Shit. It's getting expensive to do this stuff, hey? Where were we? Dinner the other night. I had to leave early to come and do the show. This is like 2 weeks ago or whatever. And my friend said to me, "I'll get it." I was like, "Are you sure?"
Yes.
Because it could bankrupt you for life, you can't just offer to pay for dinner for people anymore. That's a serious commitment. Oh, and
Yeah.
just playing Jared, there's something else to complain about this morning. The current exchange rate, 19 rand 22 cents for $1. Ugh. Guess that's gonna count America out of my travel plans this year. Ain't gonna happen. God, that's terrible. That is so bad. I remember gold being 325 rand an ounce. Yes, that's right. Cunning stunt, you old bastard. But yes, it's true. Now biltong almost costs what gold used to cost for an ounce.
100%, sure.
Right. So Leigh-Ann has got 7 jobs that don't exist today, but that will in the next 5 years. Everyone's just talking about AI. It seems to be everybody who thinks they're smart, or everybody who wants to sound smart, is talking about artificial intelligence, and they're telling you about how they're using AI now. So it's great, and I mean, some of these stories are interesting. Some of them are dreary as hell. It's amazing to me the people who used to talk about other things and were boring are now talking about AI and they're boring. But these are things that you must consider. 7 jobs that don't exist right now, but that will exist in the next 5 years. If you've got kids, get them to start studying in these directions. What do we got, Leigh-Ann?
Yeah, I mean, I remember at school there was this kind of career Bible that you could purchase when you were in matric, which would list all the careers possible and what you would need to study to get there. And if you think about it, so many careers, have been developed since then, and things that we actually need. But the first one is actually, it's a job that's already here, and that's a prompt engineer. So we know that with something like ChatGPT, you need to put in a prompt to elicit the right response and the most accurate response. And there are engineers who can put together these prompts for generative AI. The demand for those jobs have increased by 36 times since last year on LinkedIn. So if you search online for a job posting, you'll get prompt engineers coming up a lot. And those can get you a salary of up to $300,000 a year. Very, very smart. Very smart.
Sounds brilliant.
A human machines teaming manager is another one. As we integrate AI into the workplace, you're going to have to rely on human machine collaboration. And so you'll need, an upgrade from what used to be a people manager, one whose job is to now make sure that all the intelligences work well together, even the artificial ones.
I just thought of
And
a very, very important.
yeah.
Hold on. I thought of a very important job is to be the cleaner who remembers not to unplug the AI machine. Because if you unplug the AI machine, you plug in your vacuum cleaner and you unplug the computer, and then suddenly, your whole business is ruined because your machine that's doing your AI, your computer is falling to pieces because it's got no power. Meanwhile, at least your floors are clean.
Yeah. There's always that floor cleaner that you picture in a hospital unplugging the ventilator to plug in the vacuum cleaner. An AI ethicist is something that might be coming up.
Ooh. Okay.
And that's, finding out whether an internal job requirement needs somebody who has certain ethics in order to use AI. And even that's even popping up now, where do you as a copywriter or someone like that use AI, or is it cheating, etc.? And all about the well-being of humans.
Well, I think this is something that there's already a job in this world. I mean, people have been trying to figure out the right answer to the trolley experiment for the longest time. And you've got philosophers and ethicists talking about, for example, how much genetic engineering we should do, or how much law we need to make people behave themselves in a society. And it's already happening. But I do think that you're probably right. There's going to be a lot of ethical stuff that needs to be programmed in to AI. And the people who do that will be paid an absolute fortune. But they'll have to be people who we all universally agree are the ethical and moral people. Because someone who's moral in life, let's say that they're the sort of people who you would trust, you'd leave your house keys with. But maybe they're so self-righteous, like those Karens we were talking about earlier, that you wouldn't want them making rules for other people, because they're good at making rules for themselves, but they're terrible at making rules for others. There's a lot to
this one.
unpack
I'm
there.
not sure I understand this one. A digital detox therapist. So I understand, in my understanding, digital detox is stop using your phone for a week and go on a proper holiday. But in terms of AI, how does it work? So it says here, with the rise of virtual therapy during COVID, so that's like we have with Dr. Hanan, right? It's no longer necessary to have a critical mass of clientele in a geographic area. Niche therapy practices have also been on the rise. So as AI expands the presence of technology in everyday life, digital detox may morph from just a suggestion to unplug to a specific branch of therapeutic practice. I suppose we do kind of need therapy after scrolling through our social media feeds, that's for sure.
It's probably the most horrible source of negative feelings. Really. I can't imagine a worse place for people to look for affirmation and for people to look for belonging and all of those things that are massively socially and psychologically important. For people to go onto social media to find those things is just a terrible idea. So yes, we're going to need people. We're going to need people to help us separate from the machines so that we can be normal. Again, somebody was telling me not so long ago that when he goes, it's when people go to his house, he insists, and he gets a lot of pushback from people. He insists that phones are not to be kept on the table in front of people. He's not going to take them away and put them in a basket and lock it up. But he said he does not want phones sitting on the table in front of people. And every time you get caught with a phone in your hand, you either have to do a drinking fine, or you have to apologize to the table, or whatever it is. And I think that's a kind of digital detox in a social sense. And we've got to find a way of doing that at work as well. Because, for example, the number of times I've sat in a meeting with people, and it's now become completely normal for me and for everyone else in that meeting to also be on our phones while we're in a meeting. It's just crazy. You would never have done that before.
It's rude. You see,
Very rude.
kids
I feel
these
terrible
days.
about it. I'm as guilty as anyone else.
Yeah. No, there's a time and place, that's for sure. This one's quite cool, an AI personality designer. So if you think about the personalities that exist behind Siri and Alexa and Cortana, they all had these kind of glam squads behind them that were crafting their personalities. And, you know, especially now, if you think about something like ChatGPT, where you can ask a stupid question, you might get a stupid answer, but it's got to be injected with some kind of personality. So you could become an AI personality designer.
Well,
the sixth one,
that would be very welcome. That would be welcome, because I think there are a lot of people who don't just need a digital personality created; they need an actual personality created. I'm going to throw this in, Leigh-Ann, because this is very important. Carl says, Gareth, did you just pause your speech to drop a fart? I'm sure I heard you pause and then, no, if I had to, I would share the fart with everybody. I would not, you know this. I would not hide that, right, Leigh-Ann?
I remember when we first started Cliff Central, you said one of the things that you would find funny to do now that we were no longer controlled was to fart. And you put the mic in front of your ass and you had like stage fright. But I think you eventually got it right.
People come here for the ups and the downs. They come here for the ups of like us talking about AI. They come for the downs of us talking about farts.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so
the
sorry.
sixth one is a biotech AI engineer. That to me is, you know, obviously we're going to need those, but also to, you know, establish roles that require training in both machine learning and biology, all about scientific discovery and AI linked. And the last one, which excites,
Well, isn't that also where Neuralink comes in? You know, this kind of bridging the gap between organic intelligence and artificial intelligence. That's where I think these biotech engineers are going to be very busy trying to make the one kind of intelligence speak to the other one, make them clear to each other. You know, I've got to ask you this, because this is something I've thought about a lot. If you could have a chip in your head and someone else could have a chip in their head, and you were able to instantly share thoughts with that person, would you want that? Because I know for a fact I would not.
Oh, no.
Not because I'm trying to hide things, but because that is the most terrible breach of privacy available to humans, right? Like, I can't imagine anything worse than someone else having access to my thoughts all the time, being able to just switch something on in their brain, and then they could hear and see and feel and understand all the things that are going on in my head at the same time. Be the most terrible loss of your person.
Well, the place in my head is very dark. So we're talking about niche therapies. If you had to visit my head for a few minutes, you'd need one of those niche therapy sessions. In my head, it sounds like different, like you're listening to 40 different television channels at once. But that, like, you know, when all of the sound waves are merged, like just be like crazy. This one you and I would love. The final one is a smart city designer. How much fun to do like urban planning and smart city design where you've now got AI involved.
I used to, I don't do it anymore, but there was a period for about 5 years in my life where I was obsessed with those Sim City games where you would build cities.
Yes. They're still a big thing.
Oh my God. I must have built 50, 100 cities. I'd save them all, and then I'd go back and I'd redo this, and I'd lie in bed at night and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep thinking about what I'd need to do to change the road infrastructure or the power or the, you know, where do I put the residential and the industrial and the commercial land? And oh my, I got obsessed with this stuff. So yes, that is a great area to go into. Maybe I'll still do that. Maybe that's where the money.
Imagine planning roads for electrical cars and the sort of cameras and all of that infrastructure you'd need. it kind of makes me salivate a bit.
Tracy says, I watched a show on BBC last night called Sex Actually. This guy is married, but he's totally smitten with a synthetic AI sex doll. Oh man, I couldn't finish the show. They even chat on WhatsApp during the day. It's not a real person. They're chatting on WhatsApp during the day. I mean, it's AI. It's just so sad. Listen, Tracy, I know you just watched the show. You don't have any purchase on the story, but I think there's nothing more pathetic than a person who falls in love with an inanimate object or with an artificial intelligence. It's just so dumb. The whole the whole reason to fall in love is to feel some kind of connection with a living creature. You know?
The
so
cherry on the
sad.
top for me was this woman who was, so gross, who was obsessed with, I think it was the Eiffel Tower. It was some enormous steel structure. I think it was the Eiffel Tower. That she was in love with it. And she would like straddle the bottom, steel, what are they?
Leg.
Like bars. Yeah, legs. She would straddle them while wearing a dress with no underwear. Oh, God. And that was her having sex with the Eiffel Tower.
You can't do any of that anymore because you can't get close enough to the Eiffel Tower. They put barricades all around it because of terrorists and things. So she must be beside herself. That's like the most attractive human being you've ever seen, and you are 5 meters from them, but you're not allowed to touch them. Must be for her. Here's a good one from Sun Marie. She says, I'm not so sure about Neuralink. Do we really want AI that's infinitely more advanced than us to have direct access to our minds? Yeah, you see, that's where it gets scary. Even if it makes you super intelligent and you're able to, for example, speak 23 different languages, and you can instantly calculate the most complicated shit in the world, and you can Google something just by, blinking your eyes, would that make it worth having machines have complete access to your mind? Or even worse than that, other people have complete access to your mind? I think I'd rather sacrifice. I would rather deal with the glitches of like, I can't remember the name. Who was that person who, we met last Thursday? I'd rather deal with that than I would with perfect general intelligence, but a complete like sharing of instant information across minds. No, hell no. I don't like it.
There's certain things that I wouldn't mind being shared, but there needs to be a time lapse. I need to be able to edit them. Like there's some dreams that I've had that are just so amazing. I'd love to show them on like watching a movie together. But I need time to edit that shit. That's for sure.
Well, Jared has an interesting one here. Jared says, I have 2 phones. One is personal and one is for work. As soon as I get home in the afternoon, my work phone goes in a basket and I don't look at it until the next work day. That's
amazing.
Boundaries, dude. You are exactly like me in that respect. I do not have email on my phone. I still won't. I refuse to have email on my phone. And
really?
It makes my life. Yes, I still. I never used to.
I actually didn't know that.
No, I will. It's a rule. It's a rule I made for myself years ago, and I've stuck to it. I've never ever broken that rule. I don't even have. Well, I've got the email app on my phone, but it's not even on the screen, on the main screen here. So I check my email in the morning, first thing in the morning, and I check my email last thing in the afternoon. And if I'm at work, I'm available on my laptop, but never on my phone.
Yeah.
So for email, I will make sure that I attend to my email. Like nothing's going to sit in my inbox for more than 48 hours.
Yeah, because you're very good at replying.
Yeah, but I won't have it on my phone. Hey, so I'm with Jared on this one. You've got to draw your own little lines.
It was interesting. I always have like at least 4 jobs going at the same time. And one of them entails a lot of interaction on Teams, Microsoft Teams. And that's where we get our copywriting briefs coming in.
Right.
And we had a meeting the other day to say, if you don't reply to the brief that you've been assigned within 10 minutes on Teams, it'll go to someone else. And then someone said, well, why don't we rather use WhatsApp? Because we're kind of all on WhatsApp all the time. And the majority of people said, absolutely not. I do not want more notifications on WhatsApp. If I miss a brief on Teams, it's because I wasn't available to do something at that time anyway.
Hey, Leigh-Ann, here's a good idea for you and I to get into. We must design VR worlds for other people to play in and live in. That I could do. I'd design such beautiful buildings and such amazing worlds. God, I'd love that. Kareen says, I once saw on the net a story of a man in China who married his plastic life-saving doll. Oh my God, so sad. Congo Chris reckons I put more thought into SimCity than our government puts into our actual cities. Probably about right. But Gareth, was your city a world-class African city like Johannesburg? What a stupid line.
It still says that.
I know, but hasn't that come back to haunt everybody? I mean, you've got Mayor Kenny Kunene for today. I mean, how can it be a world-class African city with someone like that in charge? Do me a favor.
I wonder if he's even awake yet.
No, probably not. Did you ever play Cities Skylines on PS4 when I recommended it? No, I don't have a PlayStation.
Yeah.
So no, I've never
I still play farming games. Remember Farmville?
You're so into that.
I've got one now called Township. Totally addicted. Farming my crops, feeding my animals, building cities.
But didn't the name put you off, Township?
Yeah, it did, but no, only in South Africa.
I know. Everywhere else it means something else. Anna Marie says, Minecraft makes me depressed. I wish I could build my own dream house so easily. Well, I think Minecraft, for example, I watched, I mentioned this on the show years ago. I watched one of my friend's sons in Minecraft, and it's amazing what these kids do. Like, I think that's really creative and clever. And I think if you're going to let your kids play any games, let it be something like that, where they have to build and inhabit these worlds. And it does kind of, as long as you know what your kids are doing, and that's the hard part, right? Then these things can really make them very smart very early and teach them about things like artificial intelligence and virtual reality and all of that shit really quickly. So you can never just draw a line under it and say, oh no technology for you at all.
You're going to fall behind that way.
Yeah, and how are you going to police that? I mean, really, how are they going to talk to their friends when they're 15? And I'm not saying, there's an age. We were talking about this just the other day. We had a guest on the show talking about this stuff. That every parent has to decide what the age is that their kid starts or stops with a certain activity. And I'm glad I don't have to make those calls because I don't have no children.
Yeah, no, thank you. Shirk that responsibility.
Yeah. Okay, so here, Tracy says, imagine going to the Eiffel Tower and there's someone dry humping the tower. No, man. Or the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That thing may just fall over. Well, that's what people, there are weird people who do this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people talking about that woman with the Eiffel Tower that you brought up. It's amazing what grabs people's attention in the mornings. But Congo Chris seems to know more about this than I do. He says Neuralink doesn't have that level of functionality yet. It's mostly for things like blindness, Alzheimer's, paralysis, deafness. No, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to the Neuralink idea, but it depends how invasive it gets. If Neuralink starts opening doors in your head that you've closed, I don't think that's right. And I suppose you'll only know when it's too late, right? You'll only know about that. My husband says Sweet Pea is in a 24/7 industry. His phone is always on. The expectation is that he's always available. That's extremely bad. Extremely bad for him and for the business. And you can't, there's no such thing as a 20. What is he, the Pope? Is he he's the president of the United States? What's so important? Who is so important that they need to be available 24/7?
Like, surely you can do that, but just for 48 hours at a time, and then you need a break.
I think it's terrible. I think that's so bad for you. real Neuralink, imagine the Catholic Church having access to your thoughts. I'd be paying penance all day.
Imagine us
Well,
having
that-
access to their thoughts.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be. Oh, wow. You could convict. This is the scary
Yeah.
thing, right? You'd convict people of thought crime. And the moment we cross that line,
Oh,
it's over.
boy.
Then you think China's social credit score is a bad thing. You have no idea. Once people start judging each other on thoughts before they even become actions, ooh, we're in for a world of pain then. Cunning Stunt
Yeah.
says quite rightly, comment section on this show is like a VR world. It is. It really is. A friend of mine wanted to turn our show into a virtual reality experience where you can listen to the show, but you're also part of this thing where you have an avatar and everything else. And look, he was probably right because he pitched it to me and I said to him, this is great, but it just felt like it was another hoop that we wanted people to jump through. And it's hard enough
Yes.
for people to find time in the day to do things like, our show and comment and, send us email or give us suggestions on who we want to get on as guests and talk about some of the things we talk about. It requires some commitment. Now, this guy was going to say that we should all be in this virtual reality world together, and I was like, no, it's enough. We got
The
we
thing
got
is-
2 hours. We got 2 hours together every day. It's enough for me, right? It's
Yeah.
enough for you as well.
We've also got to remember our age and the people's ages who've been listening to us for years. I mean, there's still on Saturday morning, I was slouching around in my fluffy slippers and gown, doing things around the house, and my intercom rang. And there's a fault with it at the moment where I can hear them, but they can't hear me. So it forced me to open up doors and walk down the driveway. And there was this woman at the end of the driveway, must have been in her 60s, 70s. And she'd come to drop off a birthday present for someone. And
Oh, yeah?
as she said, sorry to wake you. And I said, no, it's fine. I wasn't sleeping. And as she was about to leave, she said, didn't you work with that Gareth Cliff? And so I said to her, yes, yes, that's right. I said, I still do a show with him once a week. Oh, you still do a show? I must listen.
God.
How do I listen? Is it on the radio? I mean, if we're
Please tell
still
me
dealing with
please
that.
tell me- Okay, but please tell me you didn't tell her how to listen because I don't want her listening.
I told her she could listen on the computer and you could see she was lost already. But no, I wouldn't want her listening. But I mean, if we're still dealing with that, how would we be ready to move on to a virtual world?
No, that person is never going to use AI in their life, and they're never going to be able to. No, they'll never cross that barrier. That person is going to be left in the pre-tech past of humankind.
Yeah, they're done.
And that's fine. Not everybody needs to come with us. I'll tell you something. Getting rid of a lot of our listeners when we came across to digital is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Left some of those Neanderthals back in the past. I could not be happier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carl says, this is interesting. Imagine if Neuralink opens all the closet doors and lets out loads of homosexuals who've been suppressing their feelings. Can you imagine? Like that's the first thing he's worried about is like, oh, I didn't know John was a homosexual.
A homosexual.
Homosexual. Oh my God. The president of the United States is not present 24/7. Exactly, Anna Marie. And if Joe Biden isn't even conscious for he's probably conscious for about 3-4 hours. So if he's not even conscious 3-4 hours of the day, what the hell does anyone's husband who's got a 24/7 job? Oh, please. Don't be ridiculous. Neuralink on a first date must be a win. No, it would be the opposite of a win. What is the most exciting part of going on a first date? Is getting to know someone else. Actually figuring stuff out about somebody, asking them questions, listening to them, looking at them, learning about them. That's the most exciting part of a date. If you already know that stuff because you can just tap into their brain, how boring.
But we already eliminate them for a whole lot of things. If you're looking at online dating specifically, we're already able to nick someone immediately because of something.
No, I love the idea that there are still things that are mysterious. I like the idea that there are things, despite the fact that you and I have been working together for so long, but there's so much I don't know about you. And virtually every show, you have some story I've never heard. Virtually every show, there's some weird personality tick of yours that I've never seen before. That keeps things interesting. I'm telling you.
Listen, I learn stuff about myself every day too.
Yeah, here's something true. Cunning Stunt says these days it's the straight people in the closet.
Yeah,
Ain't that the
that's
truth?
true.
I mean, these days, like, unless you're a transgender, lesbian, transabled, transracial person, you just better shut up about whatever you've got going on. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Joking atheist says, nah, the most exciting part of a first date is the pump.
Wow, Max Sony says, still banging my primary school teacher 40 years later.
Wow.
Good for you.
That's amazing.
Well,
primary school. Did you
such an
start in primary school?
No, I hope not. I mean, that would be illegal on a number of different levels. But
Yes.
Carl brings up something that actually came up at Mother's Day lunch yesterday. He says, I recently listened to some callers on 702 and 947. My God, the average IQ in this country is frighteningly low. Well, that's another reason I'm glad we do what we do here, right? It's there's to be able to listen to us and partake in what we're doing requires a certain number of barriers to entry to be established. And I love that, because the more niched and valuable your audience is, the better the quality of the conversations you'll have. My sister-in-law brought up that she listens to radio sometimes and she cannot believe the stupid stuff people talk about and the irrelevant stuff people talk about. Like, it's also irrelevant. It's like conversations that we were having 15, 20 years ago. They're still having those. They have not moved on. This whole thing that we've just brought up about AI is totally anathema to these people. They would never have this conversation. Never talk about it. They certainly wouldn't talk about it.
TikTok is more interesting than current radio. Honestly, I'd rather watch people doing stupid dances. Really. Absolutely. And that's one of the top questions that I get often is, do you miss radio? No, thank you.
All right. Well, here's a story that I love. And I saw the pictures of this the other day. We talk about SimCity and everything. So there's this Australian family who have been holding on to the same property for, I don't know, 25, 30, maybe even 40 years. And they've lived there. It's even generational at this point. They were offered so much money to sell this property, and everyone around them has sold all their houses and all their farms. And this family's held out. And you even in South Africa, you find these amazing properties in the middle of like townhouse developments, and you think, wow, that person decided not to sell. That person decided they were going to hold on to their entire, I don't know, 2 acres, while around them, everybody's building little matchboxes. And this family were offered $50 million from developers. And they've now built an entire neighborhood and suburb around this property. But their old house, their property remains intact. I love it.
Yeah. It's also reminds me of that movie. What was it called? Up? With the balloons and things. It was based on that house that still exists.
Right. I mean, look at this.
So this...
There's their house. There's all the houses around them. Isn't that beautiful?
And all the houses around them are so grateful for this. I mean, look how many houses have access, like visual access to rolling green lawns. So the houses that are positioned around this remaining house are actually more expensive because you have access to this visual space. But this is 40 minutes outside of Sydney. And they literally turned down this money ages ago and said, no, thank you, we'll be staying. And it's it's in the Blue Mountains area, Blue Mountains, which I've been to, which is actually really beautiful. So their plot is 2 hectares of land, and this whole thing has become a symbol of some people being able to reject external temptation and external pressures and just live the way they want to.
So I immediately want to guess that the properties that are around their property are the most valuable ones, the ones that have a view of the screen. But it must be very annoying for them, because they must also, the people who still own their house and property, and if they all go for a swim, because it looks quite open, there are not a lot of trees, right? If you look at the picture again, there are not a lot of trees around there. So if they go, I don't know if they even have a pool, but if they go for a swim in their pool, then everyone in all those flats are watching them.
So they're actually quite a fun family. They're the Zamet family, so almost like Dammit, but with a Z. And they often stand on their balcony because they know how many people are looking, so they quite like the attention. And they often stand on their balcony and wave to people. So one of the people who lives in a house that directly faces the property says, I wave to them when I see them outside, and they always wave back. And they're all happy to say, I'm so glad they refused to sell. It means that we have a cul-de-sac which is safer for our kids. There's a big lawn next to us. It makes it feel like we've got so much more space. And I hope that they stay. So the neighbors are very happy with them. But apparently they don't interact much with the rest of the suburb.
It must be very cool for them, but as I say, it's also probably really awesome for the neighbors, because they moved in thinking they're going to be looking straight into someone else's flat, and most of them are. Again, look at that picture. Imagine being the people in those back ones who, are the furthest, like right at the top of the picture on the right hand side. Those people don't have anything to look at. And look how tiny their gardens are.
This picture is actually, it shows about 1/6 of the size of this suburb.
Ugh.
It's massive.
I think living in cities is just, it's becoming worse and worse. It's not becoming better. You less and less space, less and less greenery, less fresh air, more roads, and it's just, I don't think all of this is very good. Yeah, I don't think it's good for us. And yeah, you have to pay an absolute fortune to live in a matchbox, and this is all because work has to be nearby. It's so horrible. I think you got to wake up, breathe in fresh air, see some greenery. I mean, they've proven it psychologically. It's good for you to see plants and lawns and flowers and trees and things like that. And otherwise, you're just disembodied. You're disconnected from nature. You become this automaton that lives in. Now we're going to be programmed by AI as well. I mean, how bad is this going to get? So look at this quickly. This is quite interesting. Apparently, and I don't know, this is a crocodile hunter from South Africa, because the original one was obviously Crocodile Dundee, also from Australia. So we're going from Australia back to South Africa for a second. And this guy is South Africa's crocodile hunter. And apparently he had an underwater fight with a crocodile. Is that right?
Yes. So
this is this dude.
We don't in a PC world, we no longer have crocodile hunters. So this guy is actually a trail guide. So he's one of the good ones. And he was in the Kruger Park taking a guided trail of people. And he went to the water to scoop up some water. And he's very experienced. I mean, he's like the guy.
Yeah.
He has special knowledge and skills in dangerous animals. He's a guide of the Field Guides Association of Southern Africa. Has been a guide since 1998. Very experienced guy. Went to the water to scoop up some water. Mark Montgomery.
Okay.
Went to scoop up some water, and while they were on the 5th leg of the Kruger Trail, they stopped at the Metsi River, just about 35 k's from Skukuza. Went to the river to scoop out some clean water, and on the 3rd scoop, he was greeted by this sight that no one wishes upon another, and that was a crocodile's head.
Oh my God.
And
Wow.
he says the time between his brain registering that there was a crocodile and him being underwater was milliseconds.
Oof. And now you had to fight this thing.
Took him underwater, grabbed his arm, took him underwater. And amazingly, he had the sense to put his hand around the croc's neck, right? And in an attempt to get to his eyes to deter it. And the thing is, they roll you while you're underwater. They twist you around and around. And he managed to get his legs onto the ground to counteract this. Ended up like going the opposite way. At that moment, he was able to lurch to the surface. About 1.6 meters away was the other side of the riverbank. He lunged and grabbed the roots of this tree while he was on his way to the other side. And he said, in the meantime, I'm picturing this crocodile grabbing me from the back into the water. I lurched so strongly and I partially tore my right hamstring. The left one is bruised.
Oh my
Managed
God.
to get himself out to safety. I know.
The thing that could happen. I hate big reptiles, and to be taken under croc. And now you have to try and poke its eye out, which is so gross, but it's the only way you'll survive. And you have to try and stop it from rolling you under the water and drowning you. And it's got you in your
so much to think about.
Oh no, God, no! Please, you know what?
So, I'm sorry. One of the guests actually dived in behind him to try and help him. I think it's just instinct at that point. Anyway, he was transported to Skukuza and then to the Mediclinic in Nelspruit. He's had 3 surgeries. He's got pins and plates. But his hand is saved. He's got most of the youth back already. But yeah, to survive that, honestly, is like a major feat.
It's a hell of a story. I mean, it is quite cool. You get to say to everybody, I survived a crocodile attack, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth life to go through that.
I would like my life to not include that, but it's once you've done it, once it's happened to you, unlucky as you may have been, after that you've got a really good story for people. And you pull out your arm at a party and you like order a drink or whatever, and people go, "What happened to your arm?" And you're like, "Do you want to know? I got attacked by a crocodile." Suddenly your social credit values go sky high. I love it. All right. Well, listen, that is all we have time for this morning, everybody. Have an excellent Monday morning. We will see you tomorrow on Tuesday at 6 a.m. Be good. And if you're not, take photos. Cheers, Leigh-Ann. We'll see you next week.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.